Ooh. What's that in, man? I'm gonna wait for a minute because I think maybe somebody might fall through. I still didn't finish them fucking movies, bro. Just had too much shit going on. But I was torn. I was like trying to decide if I was gonna say fuck what I said earlier and talk more about the nephilim shit, or if I was gonna like stick to what I've been saying all fucking day and do the UFO UAP type shit. But I think I'm just gonna do both. I'm gonna talk about both of those things, and if you've ever heard me, peace. What's up, brother? If you ever heard me talk before, you already know I got like 3-4 different streams of thought going at once, so you know how that shit goes. Yeah, so I guess I'm gonna start with what kind of like led me to start. I don't usually post that I'm gonna start talking. I don't like saying go live. I hear so many people say I'm finna go live. I don't know. I don't know what it is about me, bro, that makes me not want to talk like other people, but or it's not even that. Just some things just sound weird to me. Like even just now, my brain said sound cringy to me, but so many people say cringe and cringy. I just switched to another word. I don't know what that is. Anyway, so I'm listening to this. What was it? Oh, WTF Files. Not to be confused with the Y Files, because the Y Files they put out some fire shit too. But the WTF Files, right? Dude put up one video a while back talking about the Dolce Base stuff, which is very interesting shit. But I have a problem with direct government disclosure. My kind of like thought process on that is them niggas lie about everything. They lie about everything. So you really have to be, you know, careful what you give credence to with the shit that they release. A lot of the time, they'll put stuff out, and you have no way of corroborating it. You have no way of confirming it, corroborating it, and you got to realize that once you start to really pay attention to the fact that Hollywood, and I'm using that as a colloquialism, not the literal Hollywood, but that entertainment industry is a section of intelligence, meaning like they're one and the same with the CIA. Like many events that happen are staged. Many milestones that you think we've made it to as a civilization or as a Western civilization, not real. And I'm not, see, it used to be that you would say shit like that and people would just look at you like you were nuts. You can either take that and think I'm nuts, or you can do a quick goog, give it a goog, and you'll find that it's confirmed, you know, through a few different channels. Just an example would be the dude that directed The Shining. Very good director, and he's dead. His death has some weirdness around it, but he said that he directed the moon landing outright. He said that he directed the moon landing, He put a whole bunch of Easter eggs in The Shining. And then he also made a movie called Eyes Wide Shut. He wasn't supposed to release that movie. They threatened him over it. Lo and behold, movie comes out. This nigga's dead. You know? But I digress. Anyway, I'm listening to this video. It's not a lecture or anything, just a regular YouTube channel doing a video. And it's, kind of interesting. I don't know if I was listening to the Dolce Bass one or I was listening to a different one. Fuck, man, I should have just done this live when I was listening to it earlier. Anyway, and then another video pops up. It's Black Magic 363, right? Which I like getting perspectives, but lately, personally, I feel like the video's been kind of weak. Every now and then there's been something that's pretty cool, but today was Roderick something. He is an Aboriginal, I'll say, radio host, because he was on the radio. He does like YouTube and shit like that now. I think he's clicked up with Billy Carson, but he was on Black Magic 363. The episode's called Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And so I was like, okay, so he's talking about UFOs. And at first the video was kind of cool because a lot of people don't use critical thinking. Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is supposedly a slave song. It's a call and Jesus, man. Still not sleeping too much. I got insomnia anyway. That shit's been tripping since the boy got me sick. Call and response. God damn. It's a call and response, supposedly from slave times, right? And not to say that it's not old. If you want to look at time in a linear sense like that, I don't understand time, and I'm not going to pretend to. I don't think anybody does. Everybody just feels like they need to understand it, or think that they understand it, rather. So I thought it was cool that he was bringing up and making the connections for the people watching this episode that Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, there are some inconsistencies with how people have interpreted it on a mass scale. And so, he connected the dots, and people that are in that community, especially Aboriginal people in that community, have connected those dots already. They were talking about chariots of fire, and the fact of it is, at those times, we were prisoners of war, and they would kill you or beat you over the dumbest shit. So let's say you are seeing shit in the sky, or something had taken you and done some shit to you. Why the fuck would you tell them? There's no point in telling them, because more than likely they're just going to do some terrible shit to you too. So episode started off pretty good. He's breaking down this Negro spiritual. We're not fucking Negroes, or any of that old bullshit. Aboriginal to this realm. And I don't have the same view where there are some people that are like, if you don't look like us, then fuck you. Like, that shit is weird to me, bruh. When you go far enough back, you get past the indoctrination and the manipulation where, that was weaponized. And it's not to say that it's not good to be proud of your lineage, of your heritage, and who you are, but most people don't even know their lineage or heritage or who they are. And I mean that just on a genetic, they think they're from Africa. And I'm speaking pretty literally about Aboriginal Americans. I'm not, if you live in the UK, I'm not talking about you, or anywhere else for that matter. But most beings here, Aboriginal beings here, think they're from Africa. Even now, with all this information that we found and put out, Dane Calloway, Rod Hayes, like there's a group of people that have put out a lot of information. Rashad Jamal, like a bunch of people. And they still think we're from Africa. Them stories don't even make sense. So if them stories don't make sense, and then the inconsistencies with that call and response song, Swing Low Sweet Chariot, don't make sense, then one would think that it would be a good idea to look into more explanations, more possible explanations. When you break that song down, it's talking about, what people are calling UFOs and UAPs right now. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I have a different opinion. And I'll explain that in a minute. But anyway, this is more of a sidebar, because he started off, like I said, cool. Then I guess this chick was like spamming the chat, and Rich brought the chick on for, he said, 5 minutes. He was like, I'm gonna give you 5 minutes. You've been saying you've been abducted over and over and over again. Immediately I'm like, don't do that. Just let her spam, bro. Don't bring this old weirdo on here who wants attention, bro. Like, that's not what your show is for. That's just how I felt about it. He brings her on. She did not get abducted in the way that they were talking about. She had a dream. And it's not to say that that's not an experience, because there are many types of experiences when it comes to that phenomena. And regardless, I will say you're getting abducted, but in a different way, I think. And again, I'll explain that in a minute. So anyway, she talks about this experience that she had. Honestly, it came off to me like my initial instinct was right. Like, she just wanted some attention, and she had come up with like a pretty decent version of a description of an experience for it to not sound, unbelievable to people that are into this stuff. But it did come off to me like a kind of give me some attention type thing. So anyway, she tells the story, and it's essentially a dream. She astral projected in this scenario, and the dude Roderick, I forget his last name. He's pretty up there. Like I said, he kicks it with Billy Carson, has a show on Forbidden Knowledge. He starts asking her questions, and earlier in the show he had talked about how like there's more than one type of abduction and experience, and there's a lot of situations where women have like what you would almost think of as an immaculate conception, although they have this experience. This thing happens, sometimes it's just a couple of days and the gestation goes all the way to term. They come back and take the baby, for lack of better terminology. And he talked about the differences in time, and how we see time in a linear, state, which is true. I'll give that to him. Again, I'm going to go into it a little bit more in a minute when I get this fleshed out all the way, but I don't subscribe to that solely, and that's on multiple levels. Even if you accept that it's not more easily explained than that. So I noticed that the Roderick dude starts like doing these leading questions, and he talked about how some of these women who had been implanted, I guess, with genetic material from these beings, they sometimes would know that it happened, sometimes they wouldn't know, and depending on their blood type, they would need to have some sort of like inoculation or shot, right? So that the fetus, the zygote, the baby wouldn't like attack them basically, or attack their body, and vice versa. And so Now he's talking to this chick and he starts doing these leading questions. Like, do you know your blood type? No? Okay, well, you had to have a shot, right, when you had your baby? Now, if you weren't trying to lead the person into just saying, yup, this definitely happened to me, you would ask them, like, hey, did you have a shot when you were pregnant or no? You would leave both avenues open for them. He didn't do that. He kept asking leading questions. And when he went more into the experience side of it, same thing. You know, it wasn't questions about what had happened. He would say a thing and be like, did that happen to you? And so if the person wants, you know, attention or empathy or sympathy or some kind of like self, you know, some kind of interaction that would make them feel better about themselves, because maybe they have something going on where they need that attention or they need that, you know, veneration, then, you know, maybe that's what that was about, I guess. But I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. Anyway, so I'm listening to this and I'm about to turn the whole episode off, because if I get a weird vibe from these types of shows, like podcast type shit or anything really, I just turn it the fuck off. You know, maybe I'll come back to it if I feel drawn to it. But if I get a weird vibe or a bad vibe or like, you know, you're into it for money type shit, I'll turn it the fuck off. Right before I turned it, and I did move on to the next thing I had in my queue, but I realized something. Y'all know I'm long-winded. It took me forever to get here. So they're doing all this disclosure, right? The government is doing UFO UAP disclosure. All these things just started flooding to me as I'm switching this episode to the next thing. And you know, I don't fucking trust the government at all. And as soon as they started doing disclosure, I questioned it. I still questioned it. I questioned the Grush dude. There is a lot of people that almost get like kind of worshipped in these circles, like Zachariah Sitchin and you know, blah blah blah. There are questions that nobody is really asking themselves that should make everyone a little bit more like, hey, what the fuck are y'all doing? Because everybody's so excited that they've at least acknowledged it, that they're overlooking a lot of shit. Now, if you're doing disclosure and you're admitting, yes, there are UFOs, there are UAPs. Some of them are ours. I don't know if they've admitted that, but we all know that, so fuck it. And then some of them, we don't know what the fuck that is. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know how it works like that. Okay. If you are disclosing that and you release this document that's like pages long that says everything that you're going to be disclosing over time, where the fuck is the disclosure on experiencers and abductees? Because if you have been into this shit for longer than the last year, then you know how fucked up and horrible some of the shit that has happened to them people is. I mean, it's disgusting, literally disgusting. It's traumatizing. It's sad. It's fucked up. And so in my mind, it took me too long to come to this, but it's like you got pages worth of, you know, itinerary for what you're gonna disclose solely about the UFOs and UAPs, and then you throw non-human biologics in there. Very, very specific terminology. Non-human biologics. And there is, to me, a very good theory that a lot of what people have come into contact with is very advanced biological, like cybernetics or drone, like AI powered drones. Like, you have to keep in mind and keep in consideration that the technology that we are all aware of, that we think is like the heights of what's possible, is not even close. We have no fucking clue. Most of the technology that we have now was new 40 years ago, at least 50 years ago, right? There are robots that look like people. By this point, I would think that they're indistinguishable, to be honest with you. You can, and when I speak, go look this shit up, because I'm speaking from my own research. I'm not trying to like get you to believe me or anything like that. No one will talk to me about a lot of this shit, or they won't last very long, if they do talk to me. So I just started doing this because I think that there's a lot of shit that people don't consider or talk about or show interest in, that it is in our best interest for us to not only pay attention to it, but to communicate those things with each other. So I'm going to keep doing this until more people pay attention and want to discuss it. Because right now we just getting rolled on, and I'm sick of that shit. Anyway, so the technology that we think is top shelf is old, which denotes newer technologies that we don't know about. And it's to the point now, and I mean, it's always going to be this. The things that they have, we are going to have a hard time fathoming that. We may be able to imagine it on our own, or even if we read about it, maybe sometimes they'll announce that they're working on something. Even then, that shit's old. But it's going to be hard for you to like picture that, or to accept the physics of it, or the rules of it. And that goes, I mean, the grays is what most people talk about having encountered when they have an experience, right? And there's a lot of information out there that suggests that the small grays, anyway, would be, for all intents and purposes, cybernetics. So, and not to say, you can't say non-biological, because their bodies are not what you would consider when you think about a robot. So their bodies need, biological fuel, meaning like they eat. I don't know if they drink water, probably so, but they eat. It's not like a robot where, all these movies and TV shows have told you, oh, well, you don't need to eat because you're a robot. These don't work like that. And I don't think that's what robots are going to be when they get to that extent, when they're walking all around us and shit publicly. They eat us. They eat people. I'm sure there's some other shit too, but there are many, many stories of different types of disclosure of that specific detail. There's caves and underground like tunnels and shit that they supposedly, and this is all stuff you can go find. I'm not, this isn't shit from a movie or shit that I heard some crazy person who wants attention talk about. This is in documents, sometimes from soldiers that are being debriefed, sometimes CIA, FOIA releases, Freedom of Information Act releases, but they eat people, and I think there's another kind of like eat just straight glucose, like sugar or some shit, but that's not the point of what I'm talking about. I'm not fucking talking about sugar. So, point being, you can't say non-biological cybernetics. And real quick sidebar, like, if the idea of a robot or cybernetic eating biological material, like doesn't compute to your brain or freaks you out. There was a story, I don't know, 6 months, a year, or somewhere around that, maybe a little bit longer. And I think it was Japan, China, somewhere else. It wasn't America. They had created robots, AI powered robots that I guess were supposed to be leveraged for like warfare, and their primary directive was clearing the battleground. That was the story anyway, because if you really think about what war is, or what it's gonna be, I won't say now because a lot of that shit is just a TV show or a movie for y'all to watch and give your money up like, please protect us. Real warfare is what they do to us. But the story was that they were supposed to clean up the battlefield, meaning they just roll around the battlefield and scoop up, cadavers, which even if that was on the level, if that was true, how do they discern who is alive and who is not? Maybe they have sensors or some shit. I don't fucking know. Doesn't matter. To me, that's not what that's for. It was basically a story to let you know, hey, we have self-actualized, self-thinking robotics, cybernetics that will eat you. I think that's what that entire story was for. I don't think that it was to let you know about some military tech that's going to be out. Because why do we need to? You hide all that other shit, but you think we need to know that? I don't. That doesn't make sense to me. What makes more sense to me is that you are letting people know, hey, we have these cybernetics that will eat you. Like, that's their primary function, is to eat humans, biological materials, and essentially, like, it's not recycling it because it's digesting it. So that's an example of what I'm saying a second ago with the non-human biologics that are in that report that they put out with the disclosure shit. So it's not far-fetched at all that those short grays that they talk about would be able to eat beings rather than glucose water or fucking animals or whatever the fuck. One of the stories I heard, I forget this dude's name. Young Elder has more than a couple of videos of him doing talks. I think he's been on circuits and shit. But he told the story. In fact, two people told the story of being in these underground levels of I don't know if it was the S4 or whatever that base is called. So the real Area 51, because Area 51 that shit is just testing grounds now. That's not the real place anymore. But this dude talked about how he was like security, or he did something. But he stumbled into or was ordered to go to this area of these underground tunnels, and he said it smelled like nothing he had ever smelled before. So think sulfur, which you already know, when you smell sulfur strong like that, that's a problem. You should try to get away from that. Don't try to figure out what it is, nigga. Get away from that. But he said he smelled sulfur, shit, and he heard some of the craziest sounds that he had ever heard. And he knows where he works, but he didn't realize that he was gonna be around some of the shit that he was around. And so he went through this whole ordeal. This nigga lost fingers or a hand or some shit. No, fingers. He lost fingers. Really terrible shit. And my thing is, like I said, I don't really trust people that even used to work for the government, because in my mind, how do I know that you don't still work for the government? And if you work with the government, let's say you've never been in the military or in an intelligence agency, but you work closely, like MUFON or fucking, other, like Lockheed, Skunk Works, like all these companies that work directly with the government and have contracts with the government. Nigga, I don't trust you either, you know? All those people do is lie. And so the fact that they're getting people excited about this disclosure having to do with only UFOs, UAPs, and non-human biologics that they also, if you think about it, they made sure to mention that they found them. So they're not talking about the cybernetics. They're talking about non-human biologics that they found, supposedly. So just for the sake of wondering, because, every time I hear something, I start wondering all kinds of shit. What if you, these beings that maybe you're telling the truth about, if you were to reverse engineer their modes of transportation, i.e., for example, like flying saucers and all whatever they're using to get around, why wouldn't you reverse engineer their drones? Because that's what usually is sent here from other places anyway. Not saying from underground, but the ones that come from the ocean. Because realistically, that is what space is. That shit up there, that's not space, bro. if you really, really pay attention and do a lot of research, nothing's coming from up there. Not for real. Not in that way. Nothing's coming from up there. And if it is, it's very advanced and it's not making itself known. At least not yet. Anything that is seen either comes directly from our governments or from down there. So not up there, down there. And mostly that would be the oceans. Which, if you look at the statistics, that is where most of those things that actually are seen, that's where they come from. And this is all supposing that this shit is true. Because, like I said, Hollywood, the entirety of Hollywood is just a leg of the government. So, and if you're hiding, how advanced your weapons and your technology are, why wouldn't you hide how advanced your computer graphics are, your special effects? Like, the shit that you show us doesn't have to be real by any means. In fact, I think that's a part of a lot of this is misleading and misdirecting. So, again, why are you only talking about UAPs, UFOs, and non-human biologics? What about the entire section of this that is people, beings, your citizens that have been terrorized in so many different ways? Like, people that don't get into this shit don't even know all. They think that abduction and experience with this shit is just getting sucked up into a ship and then them sticking something in your ass. That's like a joke. That's a joke. That's not really what that shit is. Like, if you really get into these accounts that people give of what has happened to them, it's pretty fucking terrifying, because a lot of it bends time, it bends space. Like, they supposedly get into people's dreams. People get raped and impregnated, and then within like a few days the shit is gone, but they still have these weird fragments of memories. I mean, this shit is gnarly, bruh. It's gnarly. Where is that disclosure at? Where's that disclosure at? I don't even hear or see anybody complaining. And usually with shit like that, it's like Me Too. It's like the Me Too movement. you get to talking about some shit that's even close to some sexual assault in the, workplace, or people coming out the woodwork. Some of them aren't even real. So, within this context, where are those people? Why aren't they upset that you're not talking about their section of this whole thing? Like, there are pieces of this missing that everyone is so excited about the rest of it, they're not even thinking about where the rest of it is. And that should give people pause. That should make people be like, hey, wait a minute. This seems fake now. This seems fucking fake now. And then, as I'm thinking about this, I take another step and I'm like, that shit in Mexico was goofy. That whatever hearing that was where they brought them little goofy ass paper mache bodies out. Little fake ass goofy paper mache fucking ET bodies, bruh. Literally ET the movie, like ET go home, phone home, whatever. That was sad. And people ran with that shit for a minute, like a couple days. People were like, oh shit, did you see the bodies? As soon as I saw them bodies, bro, I was like, that shit is fake, bro. That's paper mache. That don't even look good. It don't even look believable. What the fuck are y'all talking about? Everyone's so excited that when I first started hearing about Blue Beam and, Red Behold a Pale Horse and, getting into all this shit, I was like, this shit would never work, bro. Like, people are gonna notice. They're gonna be like, nah, that's fake. Or, nah, I'm not doing that. That's goofy. My opinion on that has changed completely. Niggas are dumb. This is gonna work probably. This shit is gonna probably work, and I'm mad about it. I'm mad about it. Like, I can't believe that it is this easy to pull the wool over these niggas' eyes. Like, y'all ain't gonna pay attention to nothing. And I hate to keep having to clarify. Obviously, I'm not talking about the people watching these fucking videos. You're here, so obviously you do pay some attention, at least. You don't have to be like weird-brained and not obsessive, but like meticulous like I am. If you're paying attention, you're paying attention. And community is what helps this shit. All of us talking, all of us noticing shit, sharing information back and forth. That's what makes this work. But the average person, I don't want them anywhere near me, bruh. Y'all niggas gonna get us killed. You don't pay attention to shit. You don't care about shit. You believe everything they tell you and show you. They're gonna blue beam a fucking Christ or Allah or a Buddha or an alien or some shit up there, some spaceships. Y'all niggas gonna eat that shit up, man. I can already tell. I gave way too much credit. Way too much credit. Because, and like I said, I try to be as truthful and open as possible. It took me a minute. I guess, you know what? But I'm going to give myself some credit too, though, because I didn't really give a fuck. As soon as they started doing all the disclosures and the hearings and all that shit, and I saw all these podcasts and movies and just beating us over the head with that shit, I knew that was an op. I knew that was an op. They don't want to forfeit shit, so even if it is true that it's been decades of those of us who pay attention being like, hey, when are you gonna let us know what's up? It don't matter. They wouldn't want to tell you the real shit, period. It doesn't matter how much time goes by, because the implications behind it are fucked up. If those things are true, which, like I said, I don't necessarily believe that shit to be true in the way that they tell us it, and beat us over the head with these alien movies for the last 30, 40, 50 years and shit. I don't necessarily believe it like that. But let's say it was true. Why are you telling us all of a sudden? What prompted that? What prompted you to start telling us these things? and showing these videos, because nothing changed. There's been people saying, hey, I see shit up in the sky, and filming it, or hey, I've been abducted and reporting it. You know, none of that shit is new. So what made you feel like you needed to start telling us shit? You don't give a fuck about us. If you did, you would be doing some other shit in other arenas, like giving us clean food, clean water, helping us with poverty instead of making it worse. Like, the things have to match up for it to make sense, right? So you don't give a fuck about us. You don't have to tell us these things. And then even if you were, you wouldn't need to beat us over the fucking head with it, with both real stories and fiction, like movies and all that shit. Fiction is not real, but for all intents and purposes, you get what I'm saying. It's just very strange to me that that whole part is missing. You didn't see not one, hey, this person is going to testify, this person's going to give an account at a hearing. None of that. They didn't say nothing about no experiencers, or hey, we got an alien, so we're going to bring him to the fucking hearing and show him to you. His name is Paul. That was a fucking good movie. Paul was a good movie. I'm sure that actually has some truth to it, too. That's a loosely based on true story, supposedly, about a dude that they kept and used for a long time. Yeah, man, I just, people should have come around to that at some point by now. Like, you just gonna talk about technology? Because even the bodies that you're saying you have, you're telling us that they're drones. They're not beings, because you didn't say beings. You said biologics, which is how people on the slick say clones, drones, and robots. That's what that means. However you view clones is, that's your thing. I'm not heartless, but I don't think those have souls. I'm just gonna say that. So I don't view that as a being. I view that as like y'all niggas said, a biologic. So that's what you have to be talking about, because that's how you talk. That's how you talk to us. Like lawyers, you use slick talk and misnomers and shit. Black's Law Dictionary type shit. So if you are really wanting to disclose things out of the goodness of your black little fucking heart, then where is that section of the disclosure? Because that's a whole other thing almost. I mean, it should be, connected, but there's so much to that it should be its own thing. Like, all the missing people at national parks, all of the women and children that go missing every year, y'all just call it human trafficking. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. From a technical standpoint anyway, it really is, if you want to call it that, because all it means is you're moving somebody over state lines. And then to add insult to injury, a lot of the time it goes back to them. It doesn't go, you don't end up at some alien or demon or whatever you want to call them. You don't end up at those. You end up at the government. The same way that you see that they have UFOs that they built, that they reverse engineered and built themselves. It's like that with they do the abductions. They have all of the equipment and necessary applications to do real abductions. They have the technology and equipment to fuck with people's dreams. Like, y'all don't know, bruh. The shit that they have is crazy. That's why I keep saying I don't know if I believe in that shit at all. At least not in the way that it's been described and drilled into us by books and movies and articles and TV shows. Why do they want us to believe in aliens so bad, my nigga? You know? Like, there are gurus that talk about how reaching true gnosis or true hypothesis, like, is letting go of all that you know. And I didn't understand that. I always, every time I heard that, I thought that shit was stupid. I get it now. I get it now. At least in a way. In the way that my brain needs to make sense of it. They mean, from my perspective, what they mean is you have to let all of this shit go that's been drilled into you, because it's all lies and nonsense. And then you can use what has been left over once you sift all the bullshit out, and then relearn and teach yourself the truth and teach yourself the things that work. Like, and that applies to everything. The math that we use is stupid. It's wrong. People like Terrence Howard are really making moves on trying to fix that. Like, everything that we know is fucking dumb. If you just take a couple more steps to think the shit out, like, it's stupid. And so it's not only not far-fetched to think that the agencies and Big Brother are involved and do those things themselves and then blame it on aliens and shit. It's everything but proven, bruh. Like, you just have to know where to dig and how to dig. Even removing the governmental part from it, let's say that there are beings that come here and do things and so on and so forth. What purpose do they really have to give a fuck about us like that? To be causing this much havoc and pain and misery and all this other shit. And what evidence of that do you have? Right? Like, so far, all I've been able to find is evidence of governments faking like they are aliens and doing terrible, terrible things to people. That's all I've found in years of, like, you know, research and paying attention, whatever you want to call it. And I'm deep off in this shit, bro. I was drawing pictures of aliens when I was fucking 8. You know? That's 30 years ago. Give or take. This shit is crazy. Like, people get weirded out when I talk about the aspects of gnosis and Gnosticism that got me so interested in it. But when you start to piece all of these things together and how you really don't know shit at all, the things that you think you know, you don't know. You can either let it be depressing to you, or you can accept that and try to start teaching yourself and making sense of this shit. Because the reality is, we don't know anything. There's very few things that we know. And you know what? I told myself I was going to stop saying that like that. And I also told myself I was going to give you an example of things that we maybe do know. So one example of something that we do know was in a reel that I put up. I'm trying to figure out ways to let y'all know when I start, because it's kind of difficult to do. I don't use Twitter or whatever Instagram's version of Twitter is. I weigh 21 grams. If you're a being that is like me, you also weigh 21 grams. You, the real you, currently, you weigh 21 grams. That's it. The rest is human biologic. This is human biologic. All this. And by that, I didn't think I was going to explain it, but you could go Google 21 grams, and I'm pretty sure you'll. Maybe don't do that. It's what the soul weighs. When you die, they did an experiment, and when you die, before you pass, before you transition, you are 21 grams heavier than after you transition. So when you transition, your body is 21 grams lighter. And this experiment has been repeated a few times. So it would stand to reason that your soul or your consciousness or whatever you call it weighs 21 grams. And since this is not real, in my opinion, my humbly, heavily researched opinion, in reality, in all actuality, you only weigh 21 grams. The rest is, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I think that is something that people should be pushing for, because if nothing else, it's a good test. If you say you're wanting to do disclosure and it's the right of the people to know the truth, then you'll release that stuff. You'll do inquiries into that, and it's not even really inquiries, it's disclosure. You'll tell us what you know about experiencers and the things that they've been through, and abductions and all that shit. But they won't do that. They're not going to do that because it's them doing it. They're doing it. How else would you experiment on your own constituents without them discovering that you're doing it and overthrowing you, like the French Revolution, like storming the Bastille? How else would you do that other than creating a fake enemy that also seems untouchable and unfathomable with the technology that you hold back from those same constituents? Right? Isn't that what that is? I can't turn it off. I can't turn my brain off. People keep talking about energies and shifts and all this shit, and all these buzzwords really get on my fucking nerves. But one thing I can say is that I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. My brain is different. I've never been a dumbass or stupid or nothing, but I didn't give a fuck to this extent. Not even close 2 years ago. No, that's not true. I'd have to go back farther. Some years ago. It doesn't even matter how many years. My brain is completely rewiring itself. And it's cool, but it is off-putting. It's very strange. But yeah, man, I came to this just kind of sitting there listening to these videos. And the funny thing is, today was supposed to be an off day. Like, I wasn't going to listen to any lectures. I wasn't going to do any, studying. And this happened. If you can stomach it, look up experiencers' testimonies, and, you gotta know how to discern the attention seekers from the true, victims. Because even before this shit blew up like this, there were still people that, for some reason, wanted to, be abductees or experiencers or whatever. I don't know what that's about. Them folks need some centering, some grounding. But you can tell. You can tell the ones that just want attention. That's why I like the Y-Files, by the way. The Y-Files will tell you a very kind of like viral or famous story, compelling too. And then right after that, he'll debunk the whole motherfucking story. That shit is hard, bruh. I'll tell you the whole story like he believes the shit, and then at the end of the show, he's like, "Here's why all this shit is fake." That shit's a trip, and it still gets me every time he does it. Um, but I say you should do that because once you see the many different things that they have done to people in these experiments and these, you know, abductions, also experiments, I guess, and experiences. And the reason I keep putting it, making a delineation and a difference between experience and abduction is because technically experiencers sometimes don't even leave their room or wherever it is that their body was. Sometimes they say that their consciousness was taken from their body, or they were asleep and someone came into their dream and did XYZ. And, that could either mean that they thought it was a dream, or they were made to think it was a dream after it was done, or it literally was a dream. It could mean three different things, at least. So that's different than them, whoever coming and taking your physical body onto a vessel or some kind of transportation. Honestly, I care more about this than I do the UFOs and UAPs. Nigga, that's y'all shit. I know that. If you have some that are not yours, good for you. I don't give a fuck about that. I care way more about the thousands of women and children that go missing every fucking year. Dudes too, apparently, but not nearly as many as women and children. Because a lot of that, I don't think it's just human trafficking. I think it has something to do with you feeding the non-human biologics and the regular beings that are down there, which I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. I'm probably going to have to, I don't know where I am. It doesn't tell you how long you've been on this shit. I'm probably going to have to separate the nephilim shit, because I'm definitely going to talk about that too. That shit is a trip also. I'm having a lot of epiphanies lately. I'm not studying more than I usually do, because I always do. I can't do anymore. I'd have to do it in my sleep. Because even if I'm watching movies and shit, I'm, looking for the occult shit and the esoteric shit. But I am still going to talk about the Nephilim shit, because there's a lot to that story. But the main reason I decided I could put them together is I have this weird feeling that all of that is connected in one way or another. It could be aliens, quote unquote, different species of aliens. For all we know, all of this, including us, could just be different species of aliens in some kind of terrarium. Because there's, contextual evidence that could kind of support that. Or all of these cryptids and UFOs and aliens and all that shit could be connected. And we're just prey or something. Or I don't think it matters very much what vocabulary words we ascribe to these different situations and beings. If you get taken, do you really give a fuck if it's an angel, a demon, or a fucking alien? Do you give a fuck, or do you just not want them to do fucked up shit to you? That shit's not important. It's not important. For all we know, I guess this is really what I'm saying. For all we know, I mean, it really just depends on who's documenting the thing. Because if they work for the Vatican, they're going to say it was an angel or a demon. If they don't work for the Vatican, let's say they work for like MUFON or some shit or the CIA, for one reason or another,